Hey Revolutionaries, I'm excited to bring you this week's episode with David Taylor-Klaus, where we're talking about impact billionaires. That's right, billionaires. Not quite the financial kind. You'll just have to listen to the episode to find out what that means. And we're also talking about his new book that he's got out, Mindset Mondays, 52 Ways to Rewire Your Thinking and Transform Your Life. Yes, that's right. I know that's why you're listening, right? It's all about the reinvention revolution. And, before we get there real quick, speaking of ways to transform your life, I am going through one of these ways to transform your life right now, and that is that I bought a new house. Yeah, I bought a new house. And you know what's weird is when you tell someone that you bought a new house, everyone tells you congratulations. And they're like, congrats on the new house. Oh, they're super excited for you. And I am not feeling this excitement yet. So I'm feeling nervous. And I'm feeling like a little bit overwhelmed thinking about all the work that I have to do that's coming up here in terms of moving and getting to the new place and just figuring out, just everything new about the new house and buying new furniture and, things that fit that space versus the place I live now. So I'm not that excited. I don't know if that's a weird thing, but it's just very curious when you buy a house. Everyone congratulates you that you're taking on a bunch of massive debt and you get to pay taxes. And I don't know, it's kind of a confusing thing to my mind. I'm more of a minimalist these days. And but, I wanted to get out of the house I was in. I thought it's a good time to move and sell this old house and upgrade a bit and buy something that's new, that's got less maintenance involved since I hopefully will be back to traveling maybe, this year, certainly by the end of the year, I would hope. Anyways, that is certainly one way to transform your life. And so I'm feeling all the emotions that go along with it. And it was quite a journey to get to the point to even start bidding on houses. And I remember the first time I bid on my first house, it took me 3 or 4, maybe 5 houses to bid on before I won this one. And man, I couldn't sleep the night I put the bid in on the house, the first one, because emotionally I wasn't ready yet. I had to go through this process of what does this mean? What am I doing? Is this the right move? Am I totally screwing up? But now I'm okay with it. Whatever. I kind of went through that journey, but you kind of have to get used to these things. Anyways, I just wanted to mention that if you're checking out the Facebook page, so Jim's Reinvention Revolution. Wait a second. How's it go? Facebook.com/Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you've liked that page and you're following it, I'll probably put some pictures or maybe do a walkthrough of the new place when I get over there because it'll be kind of fun. And it's got a big new basement that I'm going to sound treat with Audimute sound materials, which I love those guys. They've been a client of mine for a long time. So the podcast will sound better, hopefully, and the space will be treated so that maybe I could do some more music-oriented performances down there and things of that nature. So that should be fun. That's one of the reasons to find a different type of space for myself. Anyways, just wanted to share that with people. So if anybody's got, any kind of tips, like do's or don'ts in terms of moving, either moving and dealing with your old house or moving into the new house, let me know. You can always email me at jimjim@jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com or follow me on Twitter at JimiumGroup, JIMIUMGROUP, of course. And for anybody who's listening out there, who's listening for the first time and hasn't checked out the website or joined the email list, go there and get your free priming guide. Yes, I put together a priming guide, a reinvention priming guide, to prime your mind for reinvention, 7 simple steps to prime your mind. And that's new this year. So go check it out. If you haven't had a chance yet, sign up for that. And now, let's get to this week's episode with David. This episode of Jim's Reinvention Revolution is brought to you by MGS Graphics, a graphics production support firm delivering services to ad agencies, graphic designers, brand managers, retailers, and product manufacturers worldwide. MGS Graphics is not only reinventing, they are revolutionizing graphics production support. So how do they do it? Well, they free up your team to focus on big ideas while MGS Graphics handles the execution. Their skilled experts are ready to jump in when your project load spikes so you can avoid the headaches and extra overhead cost of hiring new staff. Plus, you won't lose out on work opportunities because of delivery and production timelines. Did you know their skilled staff of professionals use the best and most widely used graphics software on the market? And when it comes to project management, MGS Graphics provides the highest level of customer service by assigning you a dedicated project manager. And they use the industry-leading project management software to ensure all communication, deadlines, and deliverables are met. This allows teams and clients to collaborate with each other in real time, no matter where you are around the world. Need more than just production? MGS Graphics also has a fully staffed creative team. Ask about their design services and agency partnerships. So, if you're looking for a partner to accelerate and support your business's growth, go to mgsgraphicspro.com/JJRR for 15% off your first project. 15%? That is revolutionary. Go to mgsgraphicspro.com/JJRR. That's mgsgraphicspro.com/JJRR.
Welcome to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit jimreinventionrevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, Jim.
Hey everybody, hey, this is Jim. Welcome to episode 80 of Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. And I'm talking today with David Taylor-Klaus, and we're talking impact billionaires. And also, I want to hear about his book, Mindset Mondays, 52 Ways to Rewire Your Thinking and Transform Your Life. That is something I can get down with, David. So, David, welcome to the Reinvention Revolution.
Yeah, excited to be here. I love the conversation we had before, and I have no idea where this one's going.
Okay, well, great, and I did too, and that's why I was like, oh man, I gotta talk more to him and see what he's up to. And one thing we kicked around a little bit, but I think we have just completely different views on what this term means. For me, impact billionaires, I was thinking, since I'm in the investment and technology world, that's like, oh, that's billionaires that want to do good with their money. But this is something you've been, I guess, exploring a little bit lately. So tell me about your understanding of impact billionaires.
Yeah, and so let me say at the beginning, it's nothing wrong with people who've made bajillions of dollars deciding all of a sudden to do good with it. Right. I love that.
Yeah.
This segment I'm enthralled by and I love serving are the impact billionaires. These are people who they're not motivated at all by the number of dollars they amass.
Okay.
Right? This is about the number of lives they touch. And it's billionaire because they're working with the type of content, ideas, products, movements that will impact as many as 1 billion lives, changing the lived experience of a huge swath of our population.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Well, how does one, I guess, begin to imagine that you could have an impact on billions? I mean, of course, if you impact one person, maybe that multiplies, but that's sort of a lofty goal, or is it? Tell me how you think about it, or how you discover these folks.
I was gonna say, is it a lofty goal?
I don't know. You tell me.
it's about what they're working on. So I have two readily available examples. One is in the room next to me. It's my wife.
Okay.
And the business that she and her partner began 10 years ago was initially designed to help parents help kids. It's coaching, training, and support for parents of kids with complex needs. So if they have ADHD, anxiety, learning disabilities, you name it. And what they've realized is, along the way, the models they've built and the work that they're doing, they're changing the medical model for treating neurological conditions for children. And that's only impacting a chunk of the people on this continent, in this country, in this medical model.
Right.
And the reason there are people in 140 different countries using their content now is because bringing a coach approach to parenting changes the way parents raise their kids, whether they're neurotypical or not. So what they're doing is they're changing the way the next generations can be raised by parents who are raising adults who just happen to be kids when they get them.
Okay, I like this. You said this one term that I don't think I've heard, but I like this notion.
Yeah.
A coaching approach to raising children.
Yeah.
And I've always thought, for me personally, I've always thought of human beings as human beings, not adults, not children, they're almost like one and the same. Like adults, there's a little child inside, of course.
They're exactly one and the same.
Right? Okay.
Challenge is when we parent children as if they're children, instead of growing the adults we long for them to become and that they're capable of becoming. Mm-hmm. That's why I describe it as raising children is really raising adults. They're just children when we get them.
That's right. Yeah. I love it.
And
I love it.
That will change the way people socialize and educate and acculturate and grow. That's one example. Another one is a woman named Robin Jorgensen, who has a company called Women Igniting Change. Ooh, just had a complete blank. And they are doing the work on the ground in Africa right now, unleashing the contribution of women. They've started in Rwanda and working with government organizations and other NGOs to change the way women are seen, included in, and eventually relied upon as the economic engine for the country. And there are 53 other countries to do the same work in across Africa, not to mention moving into Asia and the rest of the Pacific Rim. That is changing the lived experience of not just the women, but the children they raise, the husbands to whom they're married. It changes the entire community. So these are people who, although Robin started off as a coach wanting to increase the availability of leadership development for women in corporate, started to realize that what the real mission for her was unleashing the contribution of women. And when she started looking at where that could have the most impact, the footprint of impact just gets bigger and bigger as you look at where it can be laid out.
I see. Okay.
And that's how you go from this is what I want to do to this is what I'm here on the planet to do.
I see. Oh, I like the idea of being more intentional about the impact, right? You know, you kind of start out with things that are close to you or people that you know, or your close relationships, right? But then like being intentional, thinking like, well, where could I make a bigger impact or have higher value to offer, perhaps, right?
Yeah,
that's
it's
interesting.
Being driven by the impact. So you and I are old enough to remember. Sorry for outing you. The old shampoo commercial, right? And they'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, and so on and so on.
Right.
That was before we knew what viral was. And trigger word.
That's right.
And the idea is looking for your impact cascade, doing the work that doesn't just impact the folks you can touch directly, but that cascades to the folk they touch or part of their world.
Right.
And that's one of the things, it's a hallmark of that impact billionaire work, is they're doing work that extends beyond what they can touch directly.
I see. Okay. So now tell me more about your role in terms of working with them and how you kind of move them along, or what's their goal of working with you? You know what I mean? What's the game plan when you guys come together?
Well, using the language that Robin used, a lot of the time it's me unleashing their contribution, because we all have well-meaning family members, friends, bosses, direct reports, you name it, who say, ooh, that's kind of big. You sure you want to aim that big? What happens if you get disappointed or you fail or don't reach that far? You'll fail. And so much of the way we're educated and acculturated and the feedback we get from those around us, which usually comes from a loving perspective of, oh, I don't want to see you hurt or disappointed.
Right.
So don't reach that big. And people need someone who can believe in them and what they're capable of doing, see them at that level, and help them rise to it.
Right.
Ultimately what coaching is. That's
right. Well, it's quite often, like you're right, not everyone has that kind of what's the right word? Like non-emotional sort of person that can turn to, that's not part of their family or a close friend or something, that's sort of like a distant observer that can kind of reflect back and kind of open their mind to this idea. Because, you can always look at other people and think like, they're amazing. There's geniuses all over the planet. There's incredible people doing all these things, but you forget that they're just humans. We're all human.
Yeah.
We all have these capacities,
Absolutely.
right?
All of us. And
Yeah.
if they need to see themselves through my eyes until they begin to see it themselves, that's okay too.
Right.
The goal is for them. Eric Schmidt used to be the CEO and chairman of Google. When asked what the best advice he ever got was, it was have a coach. And so his first reaction was, whoa, why do I need a coach?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's nobody that's run a company as big as Google. He was thinking mentor. Who's going to mentor me? Who's going to tell me how to do this better?
Especially he's on the leading edge of the technology. Like, how's anyone else going to know more than him, right?
Right. And what he came to realize is that people are not very good at seeing how they show up in the world. Coaches are great at reflecting that back.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, our job, each of us humans, because of whatever has happened in the years up until now,
mm-hmm.
we have sort of a warped reflection, sort of that Coney Island funhouse mirror reflection of ourselves. We don't see the truth of who we are and how we're showing up. That's true for most people.
Yeah.
So the job of a coach is just to yank that mirror straight, take out all the distortions, reflect back who they're being and how they're showing up, and let them move and operate and shift and change and grow from there.
Right.
Instead of trying to shift something that's not true.
Right. That's pretty heavy right there, because you might have that distorted understanding of yourself. And, I guess it comes from that, it comes from that required self-awareness. That's where you start. You got to start there, right? If you don't have the self-awareness, you're not going to be growing too far.
Always starts here. It always starts inside.
Right. In any of the right directions. Well, really cool. Well, that's interesting. So I really like this idea of that you brought to the party here, this impact billionaires. I hadn't heard that term before, the way you're using it. And I think it's really, really interesting. And now's the time to do it, because we have this connectedness in the world, this social media, like all these things can be cascaded, like you said, like have this impact cascade and be like geometrically kind of, have an upward spiral with all this stuff. Is pretty interesting.
We have a greater reach from our fingertips than we ever have.
Right. So thinking about that, maybe you can talk a little bit more about this book, now that I'm sure people's minds have already been cracked open a little bit just listening to this beginning part of the conversation. But I see where this is coming from in terms of mindset. It's what it kind of pulls back, always goes back to your mindset, kind of how you perceive yourself, how you perceive your capabilities. So tell me a little bit about these 52 ways to rewire your thinking and transform your life, because, we're all about reinvention here on the Reinvention Revolution. So, can you give me a couple insights, or where did the book come from, maybe?
Let me out myself first.
Okay.
Because my coach years ago challenged me to write the book I needed to read. And 30 years as an entrepreneur, you get good at what you do by doing it badly for a long time.
Right.
So I learned a lot. And had I had a book like Mindset Mondays with DTK 30 years ago when I started, or 25 years ago when I was reinventing, or any step along the way, it would have eased my path. Mm-hmm. Right? I got desperately wound up in living what I thought was the good life. And, the way we describe it now with social media as pervasive as it is, my life looked fabulous on social media, but in reality, it sucked. I wasn't living the good life. I was living the should life. Right. And, leading the way I thought I should, and building the type of company I thought I should. And everything was based on what it was supposed to be.
Okay.
I got disconnected from me and from what was important. And luckily, I righted the ship before I lost my marriage, before I lost the relationship with my children, and before I lost my life. I hit bottom in 2005.
Wow. Okay.
Because I was so disconnected. And entrepreneurs do this all the time.
How do you think you got there, or why did you get there? Was it just, you needed to experience some life to kind of figure this out for yourself, or was there some, sort of family structure, or just some crazy idea in your head that you're like really took you down this path?
Yeah, it was, if I work
You don't have to
harder,
share too much if you don't want to, but
no,
just very
because
curious,
that's a powerful question, because it's these unwritten rules that I carried. If I work harder, if I work longer, it'll be better. And then when this is a success, then I'll be a success. Once you link your business to your sense of success personally, that's the recipe for disaster. Because then you take everything about it personally, and it stops being a business. It starts being a personal expression of who you are.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
That's the failure for the entrepreneur. That's the failure for the leader, is to take personally. That's just where your work in the world is showing up right then. Your success is determined by many, many, many more things than the stability of your company.
Right.
That's why so many folks who are trying to sell out of their company end up screwing up the deal in the 11.5th hour, because it's like, oh, who am I going to be tomorrow when I get to throw out these business cards?
Right. Yeah. A little bit of self-sabotage.
Yeah. And when you connect your self-worth and your sense of success to the success of your business, this initiative, that project, wow, man. That's why every time I turned the doorknob, my stomach turned. There was nothing intrinsically exciting and rewarding and invigorating about what I was doing anymore.
Gotcha. So, what happened? what was hitting rock bottom for you?
Hitting rock bottom was Hurricane Katrina weekend, driving back into Atlanta with my wife and realizing that the only thing I was sure about were the 5 best ways to kill myself.
Oh, wow. That's rock bottom.
And I got lucky, because I learned something about Hemingway, or in learning about Hemingway, I learned something about suicide, that children of parents who commit suicide are 50 times more likely to attempt it in their lifetime. And that wasn't the legacy I wanted for my kids.
No way.
It's not who I wanted to be. I have 3 fantastic human beings that we are raising, and that's not who I wanted to be in their lives. That's not the gift I wanted to give them. So no, I didn't really have a reason that I could see for me to stick around. I figured it out for them.
Right.
That got me over the hump. That got me here long enough to get my shit back together and to get recentered on what was important to me.
Gotcha.
I wanted to be and what I wanted to do and the contribution I wanted to make. That allowed me to start, cleaning up the mess and asking the questions that were important and doing the internal work that allowed me to be who I wanted to be externally.
Right. Wow, it's pretty heavy duty.
Yeah. That's what bottom looks like.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy duty, man. Was it something about like you said, it was around the time of Katrina? Was that the kind of the wake up call? I think everybody has these moments in their lives where it's like they get smacked in the face with something, and was it just sort of the images of that scene, and it kind of makes you pause and think like, thank God that wasn't me, or that's not my family down there, or you have this real empathy that comes out, right?
My wife and I had gone to something in Birmingham, Alabama. We're driving west back into Atlanta, and I can see the storm, which has already breached the shores of the coast. And I could see behind us how black the sky was. And it wasn't much better ahead, but it was awful behind us. And that's when I realized, and it was just one of those poetic moments that what came up into my head was, wow, it's a pretty fucking big storm behind me. And the little voice said, nothing like the one inside you. And I was like,
whoa.
It had to be poetic too.
Wow. That's pretty heavy duty. That's wild. Well, awesome. Well, awesome that whatever clicked inside you started clicking, Well,
at least I heard it.
Yeah, before it got too crazy. All right, okay, so you woke up and you said like, okay, wow, something's got to be different. You have to start being different going forward. What place were you in? Had you started? I know you had started some technology businesses back in the day. Was that where you were at that point?
We were at the 11th year or the 10th year of our company. We had hit our 10th anniversary.
Okay.
And over the course of that year, I sort of started, I had started the previous year, I had started to realize all of the things that I had missed out on. I sort of had a brain reboot. It was a health issue that when I got to the other side of it, a fog had lifted, and all of a sudden I was much clearer.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent that whole year up until Katrina weekend, instead of being invigorated by the new awareness and clarity I had and all the opportunity that lay ahead, I spent that year cataloging all the things I missed and all the things I screwed up and all the cringeworthy moments of the 4 decades before it. I was like, I mean, I literally, I took a lens of, oh, you missed out. And then I collected evidence through that lens.
Wow. Yeah.
Which, by the way, this is where the mindset work comes from. The lens that we choose is the lens through which we collect evidence. So I chose the lens. I chose the mindset that, oh man, I missed out.
Right.
And so every bit of evidence I collected fit that. So I had a year of collecting evidence of, oh man, you totally screwed up and missed everything. And that's what got me to the bottom as well. So the company had made it 10 years. And you notice that this is August of 2005. 2 years later, we started to see the signs of the fiscal readjustment that was coming. And in 2008, it hit hard.
Right. Real hard.
And by that time, Beth, my partner and I, we had a company that was doing internet strategy and web development. We'd been around since, fourth quarter of 95. We started super early.
It is early, yeah.
We got to teach people what this internet thing was so we could sell them a website. Mm-hmm. Reinvented it a few times, obviously, throughout the years of irrational exuberance. But as the economy started to go sideways, our clients started to get scared.
Right.
And when people get scared, they often can act out of sync with their values.
Right.
So we were looking at, all right, how can we find a place for all of our employees and a place for all of our clients and go do something next? And my partner was, bless her heart, so focused, and I don't mean that in a Southern way, so focused on keeping the business running. I was already coaching in 2008. So I was, 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And she came to me in December of 09 right around Halloween of 09. And she said, David, I figured out what I want to do. I said, what? She said, I want to run this business and I want to run it without you.
Yeah.
I was out in 6 weeks.
Ouch.
No, it was great. It was like, God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We came to an agreement quickly.
Is that how you thought about it then? Was it a relief to you? Is that how you thought about it in the moment?
Well, both of us were
you kind of maybe felt maybe it was just not working the way it should, or you had to.
No, we were.
It had run its course.
I was figuring out how to get this thing packaged up and gone. I thought she was doing the same thing.
I see.
She was trying to figure out what she wanted to do, and that was stressful for her. And
right.
my being, co-leading a company and coaching a book of clients, I was taking on a load.
Sure.
So that was just a breath of relief for both of us.
I gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe it's just those things just might be the right moves at the time. Makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So why did you start coaching on the side? Did you feel like maybe unconsciously like this is like a weird time and the economy's changing, who knows how long this is going to last, or what was your inkling there?
It is going to sound like a really weird answer. Fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out, really? Okay.
Here's how. My wife had gone back to work, and instead of going back into politics, thank God, she went this direction. She ended up becoming a coach, and I lived with her for a year while she was becoming a coach and launching her practice. And I started to notice how much and how quickly she was growing. I mean, it was just like an explosive expansion. And I knew two things right away. One, I want some of that. It was just awesome personal growth.
Right.
And I also knew very quickly she was going to outgrow me, and that is not good for a marriage.
No.
So best kept secret in personal development is coach training. I dove in for the first weekend of training, and my God, Friday afternoon, I called home and go, holy shit, I found it. Right. It's like I had a very coach approach to consulting, which I didn't have language for it. Mm-hmm. But as I started learning the skills that are part of coaching, it was like, holy crap, there's language and structure and technique and a profession and a discipline here around this. It was like a fish finding water.
Right, right.
So that's what launched it. And I took off a lot faster. I started getting hired. I wasn't even marketing. I started getting hired as a coach very quickly, and even during training. And so all throughout my training, and I still haven't stopped, all through the training during 2008 and 2009, I was coaching. And they had friends who wanted coaching. They knew colleagues who wanted coaching. So my business was growing, even though it wasn't a full shingle yet.
Sure. Well, that's when there's value there, that that it's meeting the market needs, all those kinds of things. That's great. And you know what? I think you're right. The from the consulting world, I've been my own consultant since when? 2006, I guess, 2007. You're right. Over the years, like people hire me for my expertise, but then I end up directing the project or end up doing all these other things to get them to implement the part that's my expertise, like the technical expertise. And that's where the coaching part comes in. So yeah, I've kind of realizing now after I'm starting to do this podcast and everything that I've had those coaching skills, even though I've never studied it specifically, but I've been doing those behaviors or trying to get in people inside people's heads to get them to understand the value of, if you change and do this, here's where we can go,
Absolutely.
So,
the fascinating thing is you may have a brilliant plan that will perfectly solve the issue they brought to the table.
Right.
And the only thing standing between your plan and flawless execution is the client's head garbage.
That's right.
and the consultant that can help the client deal with that is the one whose solution gets implemented and well.
That's right.
So yeah. Well, and what I'd say is Jim, you haven't studied the coaching yet.
Yeah, maybe I'm on my way. We'll see.
Yeah, you never know.
Well, people have been reaching out to me. That's kind of a newer thing this last year or so, that I am actually doing some coaching. So I have a few clients, one from my Jimmy Group side and one more from the podcast side that are just reaching out to me because they see the value. So it's been kind of fun. That's why I continue to have coaches on. I've had a few coaches on. I'm like on this little jag here of having coaches on the podcast, just because I see the value in it, and I think it's valuable again for people that are interested in reinventing themselves or changing something in their life or some aspect, or thinking about this different, lifestyle that's available now because we can work remotely and you can unleash your creativity in different ways and get it monetized. Where years ago that just was not a possibility. It just wasn't a thing, and that's where the real kind of continual training for your mind is necessary now. So actually, this leads me to why I'm glad I remembered this, because I wanted to ask you this next question. Was because you started coaching, you've been coaching a while, so maybe 12, 13, 14 years, somewhere around there, right?
Yeah, 12, almost 13 years.
Okay, so before this latest explosion of social media and all these other things have happened, and lately, I think my previous guest, Lindsay, so she is a business coach and a life coach. That's what she calls herself, and she's not certified or anything. She just started doing it because people were reaching out to her, and she's around 25 years old. It's a new phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's valuable
coaches,
right? There's value in both of those things out there. But I wanted to ask you, why do you think that now this coaching thing is building and growing bigger versus, based on your experience and seeing how things have developed over the years?
Two reasons: a screaming, overwhelming need, and a low barrier to entry. And the second one's a problem. And since I don't know Lindsay and who she is, none of my comments that I'm going to share have anything to do with her.
Right.
The screaming need is we've been in sort of a golden age of coaching for the last several years because the coach approach to leadership has become a core competency. And yet those same leaders we expect to have a coach approach to leading and growing their direct reports. They're neither being given coaching nor training in that coach approach to leadership. So we've got leaders, senior executives down to director level, that are reaching outside of the organizations to say, I need coaching. And whether it's in a group program or if it's one-to-one, or they're getting a coach to come in and work with their team as a way for them to get coaching, there are a number of ways that people are out there seeking it. And because there is such a big demand, and there's no licensing required or certification required,
right,
anybody with a pulse can say they're a coach. In fact, we have a lot of folks who are brilliant, like a sales consultant or sales trainer, who reads a book about coaching, says, I'm going to ask a few questions and I'm going to call myself a coach. Mm-hmm. And the challenge is trainers and consultants, the heavy lifting is on their plate, right? They're solving the problem. Right. They're imparting the knowledge. They're always using what's the word? Keep wanting to say indefatigable. They're using an exhaustible resource. So a consultant and a trainer is selling an exhaustible resource, their mm-hmm. time and their knowledge, mm-hmm. right? A coach, on the other hand, the truth is the client always has the answer or the ability to surface them. We're not prescriptive. We're not telling them what they need to do. We're helping them figure out what it is that needs to be done. The heavy lifting is done by the client, which is the reason the results last so much longer and run so much deeper. We're bringing curiosity and capacity for change. Mm-hmm. We have an indefatigable resource, an inexhaustible resource. That curiosity and creativity that we bring is what the clients don't have for themselves. In fact, even coaches get coaching because, whatever your superpower is, as soon as you point it at the mirror, mm-hmm. frustratingly, it seems to go dark. I can't coach myself.
Oh, I love that. I love that analogy. Ouch.
It pisses me off every time.
Quite for sure. Yeah, no, that's right. Well, that's cool. Thanks for that perspective, because it's kind of a curiosity. I think it's really cool in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously, it's buyer beware. You got to figure out who's right for you and what level of expertise that you need. And obviously, as you grow and figure that out for yourself, like you said, I'm sure you'll be attracted in the right way to the right people with the right credentials that's needed. But things are evolving so quickly in certain little tech, avenues and little niches that it's like, there's only a handful of people that might know about, the new NFT, part of cryptocurrency. And it's like, I need a coach on that because I don't know anything about it. No one else does.
Well, and I'm glad you said buyer beware, because there was a huge kerfuffle on Clubhouse the last several days because a couple coaches, and mm-hmm. For those who are listening, you can't see me doing air quotes. Okay. A couple of coaches, basically information marketers and internet marketers, who put themselves out there as coaches, who were telling people in one of their rooms, in a large room, mortgage your home and hire me for $300,000 to be your coach.
Oh my God!
And right. And yikes. By the way, it doesn't matter what they do. If they're saying go mortgage your home and hire me, right. I don't care if they're a plumber or a coach or a doctor. Don't do it.
A little bit out there.
but that's the kind of predatory bullshit that's out there.
Yeah.
You see all these 7 secrets to 7 figures and 6 steps to, that's catnip marketing. And all it does is separate you from your money and delay your dreams. You're looking for folks that can help you create whatever next is for you. Right. And that's going to take trust and some semblance of a personal connection.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, again, buyer beware, because, when you start your foray into the internet world, there's just a lot of things going on out there. Just leave it at that, especially in Clubhouse. Yep. I haven't experienced Clubhouse, but I hear it's a little bit chaotic right now, I guess.
User beware.
A lot of a lot of crazy characters in there. Well, speaking of Clubhouse, okay, this kind of leads me to my next question, and that is, how do you think about technology in terms of continually keeping your mind open, being able to be, fluid and pivot and stuff, but how do you integrate it into your business, or, what are your thoughts on it, maybe with other people that you coach, in terms of them being able to lean into it and get value out of it without feeling overwhelmed,
So here's why it's a great question, because I'm a technology nerd. But throughout my career, I've always been clear that the silicon is supposed to serve the carbon, not the other way around. The technology is supposed to serve the greater good of the human that's using it.
Yeah.
And all too often, we surrender our agency to the silicon and not just because of the gamification and all the theory that's used in building the structures. I looked at, we built a rewire framework, a 6-step structure for taking the learning from the book and taking it out into your world and making it real so that the learning sticks. And we thought about doing it as an app, as a companion to this thing, and realized, no, it's the fundamentals that make the most difference. In fact, one of the steps in Rewire is to write. That's the W in the acronym. Okay. And it's not retire, because we don't want you to type. It's rewire, because writing, your brain processes information differently when you have to run it through your head, down your arm and out your hand onto paper. There are people who can type literally as fast as they can think. There are kids in college and graduate school and high school transcribing their lectures and remembering nothing. And it's actually a problem. There's a lot of research being done around it and has been for a while now, and it's a challenge. So this is about going back to the fundamentals and making things work for you the way your brain works. Now, in terms of things like Clubhouse, look, if you can use it in a way that serves the fundamentals of your growth or your business's growth, yes, then it makes sense. But if it's just another example of the tyranny of the flat glass, sucking your brain out of your skull through your fingertips, it's got to have a use. Right. Now, with that said, I'm on it. I use it. I do a Mindset Mondays simulcast when I'm live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. I'm also on Clubhouse every Monday morning. So, and then I'm able to engage with folks as soon as I'm off the live feed. And I also do Mindset and Cocktails in the evenings on Monday. So
Mindset and Cocktails.
Mindset and Cocktails.
On a Monday night. Sounds kind of interesting. All right.
It makes for some fascinating conversation, especially the people in Europe that are at around 1 a.m. So there are opportunities to have enriching conversations. You can also get into a cesspool of an emotional field that doesn't serve. The same vitriol you find online, you find on Clubhouse. So you have to have agency. You can choose which rooms to participate in. You can choose when to leave, and you can choose how you want to participate. And every bit of technology that's out there and is presenting itself to us, when we hold the same agency and trust ourselves, then we make better decisions.
Right. No doubt. Well, thanks for that perspective. And it sounds like you're very thoughtful about it, right? Because you've been in the tech game, and you can probably see how it can really take your life probably early on. Like myself as well. It's like, whoa, this is like, there is so much technology and things, that are rapidly evolving that you really could spend all day long just in exploration mode and not getting any work done.
Exactly.
Right? Like, what's this? Or what does this do? That kind of thing. But interesting. Well, look, I have one more question for you. Excuse me. And that is about, now that we've heard about your journey and your rock bottom and how you pivoted, turned around, and have been running businesses all this time as well. So that's kind of an interesting take and view of the world that you have. Can you share a reinvention revelation with everyone, something that you've learned along the way through your reinventions that you wouldn't have predicted, or you learned about yourself or learned about business?
Oh, absolutely. And it's one that I've learned a couple of times. Sometimes I don't follow my learning. Okay. Sometimes the learning has to come back a couple times. Right. This one is, and I keep it in front of just under the camera on my monitor, and it says real, not right. It's so often that people get caught up in, let me make it real for me. There's so many times where I've gotten caught up trying to do the right thing. And I don't mean right as in right and wrong, good or bad. I mean, trying to make sure it's attached to some global sense of right? It's like I was saying before about the should life versus the good life. Right. Am I doing this the right way? Am I doing it at the right time? Am I saying it in the right way? Are these the right words? And that's such an external evaluation. Right. When we make it real for ourselves and those that we touch, when we make it real, it's always right. And so when we focus on making it real, here's the example. And this is part of the way I talk about coaching. When Michelangelo was asked about sculpture. They said, how do you carve these figures? He said, I don't carve the figures. I free them from the stone. What he did and what we do with coaching and what the opportunity is for all of us to do with our lives is to chip away everything that's not real and get down to what's uniquely true about who we are at our core. Live, lead, and love from there, and it'll change your world.
Right. Well, I like this thought. It reminded me of the way I think of perfection a little bit. So I'll explain that. So when you're like versus real. So perfection is sort of like, people think, I want to be perfect. I'm going to strive to be perfect. But the only way to understand or decide if something was perfect is when you look back on it. When you look back on the history of it, then you can determine, right? You can assess and say, aha, that performance was perfect. That book that you wrote was perfect. But you don't know that in advance, right?
No, you don't. And it's also, it was perfect for right then.
Right.
At that time, in that way.
Right. So it's sort of, I think it's like there's a nuance in there that is that message you're trying to get across with right, not real, where it's like, what is right? How do you assess what right is? You can't get outside yourself to figure it out, right? Only when you look back at it.
So let me go with that. Here's a recipe for pivot for everybody who's listening.
Okay.
Go buy the book called The 4 Agreements.
4 Agreements.
It's by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Okay.
It's like 120 pages. You can rip through it. And by the way, you're going to want to read it more than once.
Okay.
But the 4 Agreements, because he talks about for instance, our sense of perfect or what is perfect or what is right comes from our family, our community, our heritage, our culture, the nation, global standards, whatever, all of these external agreements, these external ideas that are foisted upon us. And we most often never choose to evaluate whether they work for us.
Right.
And he talks about that at the beginning of the book as the idea of domestication. We get all these things that are foisted on us, and that domesticates us.
Right.
And the opportunity for pivot is to read about those 4 agreements. The being impeccable with your word, not taking things personally, not making assumptions, and always do your best. And by the way, doing your best is what is your best that's possible in this moment.
Right.
Not compared to yesterday or tomorrow or last year. It doesn't matter. What you're doing your best in this moment. That is a powerful piece, and allows people to create a tremendous pivot in their world as they start living those 3 rules, those 3 agreements.
Right. I like it. Well, I'll find that. I'll find the link for the book, and I'll put it in the show notes. So if people are looking for it, they'll be able to find it or remember it. If they're riding their car right now while they're listening and don't have time to write it down, it'll be in the show notes. Awesome.
And it's like $6 from Amazon. Every entrepreneur can afford $6.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, I have one final question for you. So thank you for that, for that reference. One final question for you, though, and that is, now that we're kind of coming out of COVID and we've had this year of kind of just insanity and the world changing, right before our eyes and our own personal lives being affected, what are you feeling urgent about right now? Are you feeling kind of, how are you feeling about this opening, or what's going on, or 2021? What's happening? What's your urgency right now?
So it's like, I don't know, you said that, and I got this feeling of jumping up and down and screaming, clarity, right? Well, because, it's, I don't know, it's whatever, March 10th. So we are just about 365 days from when we locked down in Atlanta, where I live.
That's right, yeah.
Or where things went sideways. And I'll tell you, now, my wife and I have both been coaching clients all over the globe for 12, 13 years. So we've been coaching on Skype and Zoom all the way along. So it's sort of like the world caught up with us.
That's right, yeah.
But we used to travel for fun, for family, for learning. Well, it's not happening.
Right.
So we've got a slightly different flavor of the same overwhelm that everybody else is. But what that makes for is cluttered mind, right? We don't have the things that allow us to clear.
Yes.
Right? And so what's the most important thing for 2021, as people at whatever level they can as we move forward this spring and into the summer, to reinvent what their new abnormal is going to be. There's not even a new normal.
Right.
Then whatever your new abnormal is going to be, as you reinvent your lives, as things open up,
yep,
the clearer we are about what's important to each of us, the easier those decisions will be. Roy Disney said years ago that when your values are clear, decision-making becomes easier.
Right.
So clarity around what's really important for you will make 2021 a completely different experience.
Right. I like it. Clarity. That's the word. Yeah. That's the word. I like it. Well, David, it's been awesome having you on the show. If people are interested in learning more about you or checking out your book, Mindset Mondays, 52 Ways to Rewire Your Thinking and Transform Your Life. I want to make sure I get that right. Where would you send them? What should they do?
So let's make it easy. If you go to Mindset Mondays with DTK, as in David Taylor-Klaus, mindsetmondayswithdtk.com, not only will you see information about the book, but you'll also be able to download a copy of the Rewire framework so you can use it. It's a structured approach for really embedding new ways of thinking, being, or doing. So download it for free, play with it, and see how it changes your world.
Sounds great. I'll look forward to it. I'll probably check it out myself. So,
awesome.
All right, David, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks for letting me come play.
Okay. Thank you for listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com. See you next time. And remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of. Hey, revolutionaries, if you enjoyed today's episode and today's guest, let them know by commenting on their Facebook page, finding their Twitter handle or Instagram feed, and letting them know you heard them on Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, and tell them what you got out of the episode, what you really liked, or how they inspired you. I know they would get a kick out of it and will help others find the same value that you found. And as soon as you get a chance, go to jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com and download the priming guide, 7 simple ways to prime yourself for reinvention. No lie, you'll be glad that you did.